Picture this. You open an app or a doctor calls, and one word jumps off the page, creatinine. High, then another word follows it. Kidney function, reduced. And in that moment, something in your chest tightens because nobody handed you an instruction manual for what to do next. You nodded, politely folded the paper, drove home, and then spent the next 3 nights typing questions into a search bar at midnight, getting more scared with every article instead of more informed. If that sounds like you, or like someone you love, stay with me for the next few minutes, because I'm about to hand you the instruction manual nobody gave you the first time. Here's the truth that almost nobody says out loud in that doctor's office. An elevated creatinine number is not a verdict. It's a warning light on the dashboard. And warning lights exist for exactly one reason, so you can do something before the engine actually fails. Most people over 60 who get this news have far more room to act than they're told. The problem isn't that their kidneys are broken beyond repair. The problem is that nobody ever sat them down and said, here are the 5 things that actually move this number, starting today, backed by real research, not wishful thinking. That's exactly what this video is. I'm not here to sell you a miracle. I'm not here to replace your physician, your nephrologist, or your renal dietitian. You still need them, and if your kidney numbers are seriously abnormal, they need to be steering this ship. What I am here to do is translate the science into a plan simple enough that you can start it before you even finish watching. So let's get into what that number on your lab report is, actually telling you why it climbed in the first place, and then the part you're really here for, the 5 things you can do right now to help turn it around. Let's start with the basics, because understanding the why is what makes people actually stick with the what. Creatinine isn't some foreign toxin invading your body. It's a completely normal byproduct of your own muscles at work. Every time a muscle fiber contracts, walking to the kitchen, climbing a stair, even just existing, a tiny bit of creatine gets used up and converted into creatinine, which then drifts into your bloodstream. In a healthy system, your kidneys act like an incredibly efficient filtration plant, pulling that creatinine out of the blood continuously and flushing it out through urine. A normal reading sits somewhere around 0.7 to 1.2 milligrams per deciliter for men and 0.5 to 1.0 for women, though every lab has its own reference range. When that number rises, it's not the creatinine itself causing damage. It's a messenger. It's telling you the filtration plant is slowing down, that your glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, the actual measure of how well your kidneys are clearing your blood, has dropped. And the further that number climbs, the louder the message becomes. So why does this happen, especially after 60? It's rarely just one thing. It's usually a handful of forces working together quietly over years. The first is simply time. Kidney function naturally declines with age. Most research puts the loss at around 1% of filtration capacity per year after your 40s. Or by the time someone reaches their 70s, they may be working with 1/4 to 1/3 less kidney reserve than they had at their physical peak. That's not a disease, it's biology. But it does mean the margin for other stressors shrinks with every passing decade. The second is blood pressure. Your kidneys are laced with an almost unbelievably delicate network of capillaries called glomeruli. Think of them as microscopic sieves. Those sieves were built for gentle, steady pressure, not for the pounding force of untreated hypertension. Year after year of high blood pressure stiffens and scars these tiny vessels, and the kidneys and the blood pressure end up, dragging each other down in a vicious cycle. Damaged kidneys struggle to regulate pressure, and high pressure damages the kidneys further. The third is blood sugar. When glucose sits elevated in your bloodstream for extended periods, whether you carry a diabetes diagnosis or not, it triggers a process called glycation, where sugar molecules essentially glue themselves onto proteins in your blood vessel walls, making them stiff and leaky. This is the exact mechanism behind diabetic kidney disease, one of the leading causes of kidney failure worldwide, and it can be doing damage years before any official diagnosis shows up. The fourth, and one people almost never think about, is dehydration. As we age, our thirst signal becomes unreliable. You can be meaningfully dehydrated and simply not feel thirsty enough to do anything about it. When your body runs low on fluid, your blood thickens, flow to the kidneys drops, and creatinine can spike surprisingly fast. In a lot of cases, what looks like worsening kidney disease on paper is actually chronic invisible dehydration wearing the kidneys down. And the fifth is medication. Certain everyday drugs, common painkillers, some antibiotics, contrast dye used for CT scans, even a few herbal supplements, place direct stress on kidney tissue. This isn't a reason to panic or stop your prescriptions on your own. It's a reason to have an honest, specific conversation with your doctor about everything you're putting into your body. Now here's why the timing of your response matters so much. Chronic kidney disease unfolds in stages, and in the earlier stages, which is where most people watching this video currently sit, the kidneys still have Meaningful reserve and remarkable responsiveness to lifestyle change. This is the window where diet and daily habits can genuinely slow the decline, and in some cases even nudge the numbers back in the right direction. Later on, once significant tissue has been lost, the strategy shifts from reversal toward management. So the message isn't panic, it's move now while the window is wide open. Let's walk through exactly how. The first and fastest lever you can pull is hydration, and I want you to really absorb this one because it is the single cheapest, fastest acting change on this entire list. Your kidneys cannot filter what isn't flowing. Blood volume depends directly on how hydrated you are, and when you're even mildly short on fluids, your blood thickens. Pressure inside those delicate kidney capillaries changes, and creatinine, which needs adequate urine output to be flushed out, starts backing up. The third lever is sodium, and this is where the damage becomes a self-feeding cycle if you don't interrupt it. When you eat too much salt, your body holds onto extra water to keep your blood's sodium concentration balanced. That extra fluid increases your total blood volume, which drives your blood pressure up, and elevated blood pressure, as we already covered, is one of the most destructive forces your kidneys will ever face. Higher pressure pushed through already. Struggling glomeruli accelerates the damage, protein starts leaking into the urine as the filtering barrier gets breached, and creatinine climbs even further. It's a loop that feeds itself unless you break it. Most nephrology guidelines recommend adults with elevated creatinine capped sodium, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 milligrams a day, about half a teaspoon of salt total, counting everything you eat, not just what comes out of the shaker. And that's the real trap. Most of the sodium in the average diet isn't added at the table, it's hiding and packaged in restaurant food. A single serving of canned soup can carry 800 to 200 milligrams on its own. Deli meat, bread, cheese, sauces, and ready meals can each quietly use up a huge chunk of your daily budget before you've even sat down for dinner. Breaking the habit starts with reading labels. Look for sodium per serving and aim for products under 140 milligrams per 100 grams where you can. Cook more from whole ingredients instead of packets and cans. And lean on flavor that doesn't come from salt at all. Garlic, ginger, citrus, fresh herbs, and vinegar can make food taste vivid without costing your kidneys anything. Most people who commit to this seriously see a measurable drop in blood pressure within 2 to 4 weeks, and with it, real relief for the kidneys. To start today, check the sodium label on every packaged item in your kitchen this week. Swap canned soup for a homemade version with low sodium stock. Take the salt shaker off the table and replace it with a spice rack. And when you eat out, don't be shy about asking for your dish prepared with less salt. The fourth lever is blood sugar management. And I want to be clear, this applies to you even if you've never been told you're diabetic. Chronically elevated glucose, the kind that comes from a steady diet of refined carbs, sugary drinks, and heavily processed food, quietly damages the same delicate blood vessels in your kidneys through that glycation process we talked about earlier. This erosion can be happening for years before any diabetes diagnosis officially lands, which is exactly why research on people with prediabetes already shows measurable changes in kidney filtration and urine protein levels. Waiting for an official diagnosis before you address this is, frankly, waiting too long. The good news is the fix here overlaps beautifully with everything else you're already doing. Swap refined carbohydrates, white bread, white rice, pastries, sugary cereal, for fiber-rich alternatives like vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and lower sugar fruits, which slow glucose absorption and blunt those sharp after-meal spikes. Spread your carbohydrate intake across smaller meals instead of 1 or 2 large ones, and move your body after you eat. Even a gentle 15-minute walk after your biggest meal of the day pulls glucose out of your bloodstream and into your muscles, meaningfully lowering the post-meal spike. To start today, trade your usual breakfast starch for something gentler. Eggs with vegetables or plain yogurt with berries instead of sweetened cereal. Cut sugary drinks completely. Take a short walk after dinner. And if it's been a while, ask your doctor to check your HbA1c, which gives you a much clearer picture of your average blood sugar over the past few months than any single glucose reading can. The cruel twist for people over 60 is that your thirst mechanism gets quieter with age. A younger adult feels thirsty after losing roughly 1 to 2% of their body water. Someone older might not feel that same urge until they've lost 3 to 4%, meaning by the time you actually feel thirsty, you're already behind. Combine that with a very understandable habit many older adults develop of cutting back on fluids to avoid extra bathroom trips, and you end up with a population that is quietly, chronically underhydrated in a way that directly punishes the kidneys. The fix isn't complicated. Stop waiting to feel thirsty and drink on a schedule instead. Most adults with mildly to moderately elevated creatinine, assuming normal urine output and no physician-imposed fluid restriction, should aim for somewhere around 6 to 8 glasses of water a day, adjusted for your body size, the climate you live in, and your activity level. Herbal teas like dandelion root and nettle can be a pleasant, kidney-friendly way to add to that total. Water-rich foods, cucumber, celery, watermelon, zucchini, clear broths, count too. They bring extra nutrients along for the ride. On the flip side, start dialing back heavy caffeine, alcohol, and sugary sodas, all of which either dehydrate you further or dump an extra glucose and phosphorus load onto kidneys that are already working overtime. Here's a dead simple way to start today. Fill a 1.5 liter bottle first thing in the morning and make finishing it your non-negotiable target before dinner. Set a phone reminder every couple of hours. And check the color of your urine. Pale straw yellow means you're doing well. Dark amber means your body's asking for more. The second lever, and the one that surprises people most, is dialing back protein, particularly red meat. This one runs against almost everything you've heard about eating well as you age, so let me explain the biology, because once it clicks, it makes complete sense. When you eat protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids, and in doing, G so produces nitrogen-based waste, urea, uric acid, and yes, creatinine itself. Your kidneys have to filter all of that out. For a healthy kidney running at full capacity, that's no problem. But for a kidney that's already struggling, every extra gram of protein is extra homework it didn't ask for, and multiple clinical trials have shown that cutting back on dietary protein, especially animal protein, measurably slows the rate of kidney function decline. The general target for someone with elevated creatinine and reduced GFR tends to land around 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, noticeably lower than the 1.2 to 1.6 grams often recommended for healthy older adults trying to preserve muscle mass. For a person weighing around 70 kilograms, or roughly 154 pounds, that works out to somewhere near 42 to 56 grams of protein a day. That's not no protein, it's smarter protein. Plant sources like lentils, chickpeas, and tofu, along with eggs in moderation, produce less nitrogen waste per gram than red meat does. Fish and poultry are gentler choices than beef or pork. Processed meats and large steak-sized portions are where the real damage tends to accumulate. A practical way to start today, pull red meat and deli meats out of this week's meal plan entirely and swap in a lentil stew, grilled fish, or a tofu stir-fry instead. Keep your protein. Portions roughly palm-sized at each meal. And bring your exact number to your doctor or a renal dietitian, because your ideal target depends on your specific GFR. This is a starting framework, not a prescription. The fifth and final lever is one that most people never think to act on, and it's arguably the one with the fastest payoff, because it doesn't require changing a single meal, it requires a conversation. Your kidneys are the primary exit route for most medications in your body. When kidney function drops, drugs that would normally clear out efficiently can build up to higher, sometimes toxic, concentrations. And separately, certain medications place a direct chemical burden on kidney tissue no matter how well your kidneys are functioning otherwise. The biggest offender by far is a category most people don't think of as risky at all: common over-the-counter pain relievers like ibuprofen and naproxen. These drugs work partly by reducing prostaglandins, compounds your kidneys rely on to maintain their own internal blood flow. Take them regularly, especially if you're even mildly dehydrated or already dealing with reduced kidney function, and you can trigger a real and sometimes rapid decline. Certain antibiotics carry similar risk and may need dose adjustments. Contrast dye used for CT scans is another one your medical team needs to know about in advance. And surprisingly, a number of herbal and natural supplements, including certain high-dose vitamin C products, some traditional remedies and supplements containing chromium or germanium, have documented effects on kidney tissue that most people never hear about. Here's the honest truth. Your doctor can only protect you from risks they actually know about. If they don't know you're taking a daily ibuprofen for your knee or a supplement your neighbor recommended, they can't factor it into your care. To start today, write down every single thing you take, every prescription, every over-the-counter pill, every vitamin, every herbal remedy, along with the dose and how often you take it. Bring that list on paper to your next appointment and ask directly, given my current kidney numbers, is anything on this list adding unnecessary strain? And one important caution, never stop a prescribed medication on your own, even if you suspect it's part of the problem. That decision belongs to you and your doctor together, because the risk of stopping something abruptly can sometimes outweigh the risk of continuing it. Now, here's something I really want you to understand before you go try to pick just one of these 5 and call it done. These aren't 5 separate competing strategies. They're 5 different doors into the same room, and they work best when you walk through more than one at a time. Better hydration improves blood flow. Lower protein intake lightens the waste load your kidneys have to clear. Lower sodium eases the pressure on fragile vessels. Stable blood sugar protects those same vessels from a completely different angle. And a cleaner medication list removes hidden, Chemical stress altogether. Stack 2 or 3 of these together and the benefits don't just add up, they compound. Better blood flow combined with lower pressure delivers more oxygen to struggling tissue. Lower waste production combined with better hydration gives your kidneys an easier job clearing what's left. You don't need to nail all 5 perfectly starting tomorrow. Pick the one that feels easiest. For most people, that's hydration. And layer the rest in over the coming days and weeks. If you want a dead simple rule to guide your grocery shopping and your plate without memorizing a spreadsheet of numbers, try this. Foods that grew in the ground or swam in clean water are generally working with your kidneys. Foods that came out of a can, a box, or a drive-through window are generally working against them. Leafy greens, cauliflower, green beans, bell peppers, apples, berries, pears, lentils, tofu, fish, olive oil, and whole grains like oats and brown rice belong on your plate more often. Red and processed meats, large amounts of dairy, canned and packaged goods, sugary food and drink, and alcohol belong there far less often. It's not about perfection, it's about the general direction most of your choices lean. One more piece I don't want you to skip, tracking your progress. Ask your doctor to monitor your serum creatinine and calculated eGFR at regular intervals, along with a urine albumin to creatinine ratio, which can catch protein leakage into the urine long before other symptoms show up. Keep an eye on your blood pressure at every visit, your HbA1c if blood sugar is a concern, and your electrolytes, particularly potassium and phosphorus. Watching these numbers shift in the right direction over weeks and months isn't just clinically useful, it's genuinely motivating. Progress you can actually see on paper is progress you're far more likely to stick with. And I want to be honest about where the professionals fit into all of this, because none of what I've shared tonight is meant to replace them. It's meant to make your conversations with them sharper and more productive. If your eGFR has dropped below 60 or your numbers concern you, it is entirely reasonable to ask your primary care doctor whether a referral to a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, makes sense. Too many people aren't referred until the disease has already advanced significantly, simply because nobody asked. A renal dietitian is another resource that gets criminally underused. The right targets for protein, potassium, phosphorus, and fluid intake genuinely differ from person to person, and a dietitian can build something tailored to your exact numbers instead of a generic template pulled off the internet. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with the thing I actually believe matters most here. There are 2 paths people take after hearing that their creatinine is elevated. One path is to feel the fear, fold up the paperwork, tuck it in a drawer, and quietly hope the next test looks better. And for a lot of people who take that path, the next test doesn't look better. It looks worse because nothing changed. The other path is to feel exactly the same fear, and then, instead of freezing, decide calmly, deliberately, to do something with it. To drink the water, to skip the salt, to swap the steak for lentils tonight, to take the walk after dinner, to write down every pill you take and bring that list to your next appointment. None of these 5 actions are dramatic. None of them are expensive. None of them require anything you can't starty in the next hour. But consistency with the right habits, sustained over weeks and months, genuinely changes the trajectory for a lot of people. And your kidneys, remarkably resilient organs that they are, tend to respond when you finally give them the conditions they need. You are not just a passenger in this story, you're the one holding the wheel. So don't wait for the next lab result to decide who you're going to be about this. Start today, with a glass of water, a phone call to schedule, that follow-up appointment, and the quiet decision that your kidneys have earned better than they've been getting.